Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 6 Part 22 based on novel. So let's start. The space above the small courtyard suddenly became icy cold as the night spread. It was as though there was a cold blade-like airflow, causing one's heart to feel chilly. Lin Dong raised his head and looked at the grey-clothed Luo Tong, who had a sharp blade aura lingering over his body. At this moment, the latter appeared to have become a sharp sword that had just been drawn from its shaft. That piercing aura caused one to feel stingingly cold. Honestly speaking, I also feel that I really overestimate myself at times. However, ever since I entered this domain, I have been traveling with this attitude until I finally reached this place. Lin Dong chuckled. In that case, perhaps this place will be where you meet your end. Luo Tong slowly said. The sharp aura that covered around him suddenly became denser after his voice sounded. A faint densely cold sharp glow flowed over the tip of his finger. It is likely that most factions within the Wanxiang city are keeping a close eye on this place tonight. Since you have become the vanguard, I shall use you to transmit my thoughts to them. Lin Dong's eyes swept throughout the night sky. He could sense that many eyes within the city were all gathered at this place from all directions. There were definitely quite a number of people amongst them who have plans on dealing with them. At this moment, Lin Dong also wished to send these people a clear message. Little Flame stood up from the ground at this moment. His strong body carried an extremely strong pressure. Threads of fierceness spread out from within his body, causing Luo Tong's eyes to convolute slightly. Let Lin Dong fight. Little Martin lazily waved his hand. His body that was sitting on a rock did not show any signs of moving. Other than having glanced at this Luo Tong once, his gaze had been completely withdrawn. Sukue looked at Little Martin. He had quite a deep understanding of Lin Dong's group. Amongst the three, Lin Dong appeared to possess a seemingly never-ending number of trump cards, causing one to be unable to fully grasp him. Little Flame was the fiercest amongst them. The monstrous fierceness when he fought could shock one's soul. Little Martin, on the other hand, was the most mysterious person amongst the three. He always had that casual and unconcerned manner. Even when facing an existence like a super empire, Little Martin did not reveal the slightest fear. This three-man lineup of people with different character caused Sukue to sigh quietly after looking at them. It was likely that this group would become the brightest dark horse within that 100 Empire war. Little Flame hesitated for a moment upon hearing this. He only sat down after seeing Lin Dong nodding slightly. However, his body was leaning slightly forward, appearing like a fierce tiger ready to pounce on its prey. He was prepared to unleash a shocking force anytime. Just you alone. Luo Tong's finger gently drew across his front. The air was torn apart. He looked at Lin Dong and spoke faintly. I'm more than enough to deal with you. Lin Dong smiled. In the next instant, his eyes suddenly turned cold. His body shook slightly as bright golden light immediately erupted. It transformed into a shiny golden body barrier. Clang clang. Luo Tong immediately emitted some metallic sound as the golden body barrier appeared. Sparks surfaced on the formless surface of the light barrier. It seemed that there was some attack that was quietly eroding Lin Dong. The corner of Lin Dong's mouth curled slightly. Immediately, his eyes became gradually icy cold. His foot stepped forward. With a swoosh sound, it transformed into a black figure that shot out with lightning-like speed. Lin Dong's body appeared in front of Luo Tong in a flash. He strided forward. Wild and violent yuan power swept out and directly agglomerated into a large gold-colored huge elephant around him. Saint Elephant Sky Crumbling Tackle. The golden-colored giant elephant wrapped around Lin Dong. It was accompanied by an overwhelming force that could cause the heavens and earth to crumble as he ruthlessly collided towards Luo Tong. Luo Tong's eyes scintillated when he saw that Lin Dong had unleashed such a powerful attack as a first move. He took a slight step back and his fingers curled. The sharp aura around him completely erupted like swords at this moment. Spirit Sword Finger. Swoosh. A sharp aura was spat out from the tip of Luo Tong's fingers and actually agglomerated into a hundreds of feet large deep green-colored huge sword. A cold glint flowed over the huge sword. After which, the sword was directly hacked ferociously downwards. It carried a shocking sharpness as it mercilessly struck onto the gold-colored enormous elephant that was charging over in front of countless number of gazes. Clang! The two collided. Immediately, a clear sound spread far into the sky, deafening one's eardrum. I shall now tell you the gap between the first and the second. A cold glint agglomerated within Luo Tong's eyes. Suddenly, he emitted a sharp cry. An extremely vast and mighty yuan power suddenly swept out from his body in all directions at this moment. The power that rippled out was far stronger than that of a 3 yuan nirvana stage expert. This Luo Tong had actually passed through the 4th nirvana tribulation. He had reached the level of a 4 yuan nirvana stage. The gazes of quite a number of people present in the night were somewhat shaken. Clearly, they were only aware that Luo Tong had successfully passed the 4th nirvana tribulation at this moment. In this way, the strength of the Wind Cloud Empire would surge dramatically again. Crack! The sharp aura of the sword glow also became increasingly razor-like as Luo Tong's yuan power soared. In the next instant, some cracked lines had actually appeared on the large gold-colored elephant. Finally, a boom sound and it completely exploded apart. The golden light exploded and the figure within it also vaguely appeared. Sword Master Finger, / Mountains. This attack by Luo Tong was extremely vicious. It broke through Lin Dong's attack in one strike. Moreover, it did not show the slightest sign of pausing. The cold glint in his eyes became even mightier. The seal formed by his fingers changed as he pointed his finger towards Lin Dong and swung it downwards from across the air. Boom! An indescribable sharp hour crazily gathered over Luo Tong's fingertip. That dense stern chillness caused countless number of people looking from the darkness to feel a chill over their bodies. The wild gathering of the sharp aura lasted for only a short moment before an extremely large dark gold-colored large sword was suddenly formed. There was a vague illusory figure suddenly being formed on the large sword. An illusory figure seemed to accompany it like a great master swordsman. That illusionary figure that had appeared within the courtyard caused the dark gold large sword's aura to suddenly soar. It was as though the sword possessed a spirituality. That kind of sharp aura caused quite a number of experts who had stepped into the 3 yuan nirvana stage to feel a coldness being formed in their hearts. They knew that they were unable to block this killing move from Luo Tong. The first-ranked member of the Earth category really lived up to his reputation. Lin Dong, there is no injustice in dying under my soul martial arts. Your road in this ancient battlefield ends here. Luo Tong's eyes were as sharp as blades. That icy cold voice of his was transmitted downwards from the night sky. He did not give Lin Dong any opportunity to speak at this moment as he waved his finger downwards from some distance away. That gold-colored large sword whizzed down, carrying a frightening momentum that could tear apart a mountain as it struck towards Lin Dong a short distance away. Who? Those buildings below were blasted apart as the enormous sword was swung down. They crumbled, forming numerous tiny stone fragments. Their surfaces were all extremely smooth. The speed of the large sword was extremely quick. Within a flash, it had rushed through the night sky and accurately strike onto a figure in front of countless number of gazes. It's over. This thought flashed across everyone's heart while the enormous sword was hacking downwards. This attack by Luo Tong was likely sufficient to kill any 3 yuan nirvana stage experts. The nirvana golden body at this level was unable to block such a great strength. Clang! However, while everyone was thinking that a seriously injured body would fly backwards after being struck by the gold-colored large sword, another extremely clear metallic sound was once again transmitted from the area where the golden light was surging. In the next instant, a shocking ripple suddenly erupted from it. The bright glow once again erupted from the figure. This time around, however, it was not golden in color. Instead, it was a kind of unusual green color. The green glow that erupted within the dark night was extremely eye-catching. All the gazes, including that of Luo Tong, suddenly shot over. Their eyes immediately shrunk. The green light shrunk back and a green-colored light barrier appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Moreover, there was an enormous dragon figure lingering over that light barrier. A frightening pressure spread from the sky, causing quite a number of people to feel a fear within their hearts. The enormous gold-colored sword was coincidentally being bitten by that dragon shadow. This caused it to be unable to advance any further. Moreover, the sharp aura that permeated around the large sword was also completely blocked. Luo Tong's killing blow had clearly been forcefully blocked by Lin Dong. A continuous sound of cold breath being inhaled quietly appeared within the night sky, indicating the shock in everyone's heart. The figure over the green-colored light barrier raised his head slowly. Next, he raised his hand. His entire hand was actually being covered by closely packed green-colored scales. A kind of mysterious yet powerful aura was faintly spreading. Green Dragon Bite. The hand that was covered by the green-colored scales was suddenly clenched. Immediately, the green-colored light barrier that lingered above the dragon shadow's large mouth suddenly bit downwards. Bang! A clear piercing sound appeared in the night sky. Immediately, that enormous gold-colored sword that was shockingly sharp actually shattered in front of many stunned eyes. At the very least, you do not possess the qualification to kill me. The enormous sword was shattered as an icy cold voice spread apart within this night sky while carrying a chilling feeling. The giant golden sword fragments exploded outwards and even air itself seemed to be torn apart wherever the fragments passed, let alone the buildings below, which were directly turned into Swiss cheese, revealing numerous glossy black holes. Within the darkness, shock stealthily surfaced in the several eyes which had been watching the night sky. Evidently, no one had expected Lin Dong to directly smash Luo Tong's formidable attack into pieces with just the strength of 3 Yuan Nirvana stage. There was practically no warm-up period in the duo's exchange. Their first blows were formidable strikes. Both knew that the other was no ordinary individual. Thus, neither party planned to show any mercy when they attacked. Hence, this short exchange secretly contained an endless amount of danger. In the courtyard, Tsukue involuntarily swallowed when he saw that scene. His eyes could not help but turn towards the tall figure shrouded in green light. The cards up this fellow's sleeves were completely astonishing. Little Martin still maintained his lazy appearance as if nothing was out of the ordinary. Although Luo Tong had reached the 4 Yuan Nirvana stage, he had clearly advanced to that stage not too long ago. To suppress Lin Dong with just this was undoubtedly a pipe dream. What's more, the current Lin Dong had dragon transformation, a martial art that even little Martin felt was extremely wondrous and mysterious. Hovering in the night sky, Luo Tong stared intensely at that figure shrouded by a green glow. At the same time, the shock in his eyes stealthily retreated. Moments later, it was completely transformed into a solemn glint. Right now, he no longer dared to treat that young man in front of him as an ordinary individual. It seems like I have indeed underestimated you. Luo Tong's voice was solemn. He pointed out 2 of his pale fingers before he clipped a giant sword fragment that was flying back at him. The sharp glow flowing in his eyes were as sharp as a blade. Even if that is the case, I must tell you. It is not a wise move to offend my Wind Cloud Empire. While that green glow flowed, that dragon-like shadow slowly swiveled before it gradually disappeared. Promptly, Lin Dong's figure once again appeared in front of countless pairs of eyes that were stealthily surveilling him. After withdrawing the green glow, the cold glint on the green scales on Lin Dong's right arm began to glow even more resplendently. As he lifted his head, a cold glint also appeared on his pupils, which were mixed with a dash of green, before he said, I must tell you too. You have overestimated yourselves. Swoosh! After he spoke, Lin Dong's eyes turned completely icy cold. Following which, his figure flashed as he leapt forth. Countless blurry shadows transformed into a green light ray, as he directly tore through the air and appeared in front of Luo Tong at a startling rate. Lin Dong's sudden increase in speed caused Luo Tong to be stunned. However, promptly, the vigorous Yuan power in his body gushed out. He knew that there were countless individuals observing this place. Therefore, tonight, for the sake of Wind Cloud Empire's reputation, he must thrash this fellow who has suddenly popped out in Thousand Elephant City. Green Dragon Bat. A glaring green glow swept out from Lin Dong's body in every direction. Finally, it swiftly gathered on the middle finger of Lin Dong's right palm. As that green glow quickly gathered together, Lin Dong's figure began to swell up in a peculiar fashion. Green scales slowly appeared on his fingers. In a few short moments, Lin Dong's finger had transformed into a several meters long green dragon finger. His dragon finger was wrapped with countless green scales. Meanwhile, a savage shockwave emerged from it. At the tip of his finger, there was a dazzling cold glint which looked as if it could penetrate through space. This was a genuine dragon finger, and it was not forged from yuan power. The materialized dragon skill that Qingji had given Lin Dong had the ability to rob the heavens of its powers. If you could fully master it, his physical body would rival that of the dragon tribe. Of course, based on Lin Dong's current strength, he had naturally yet to reach that stage. Nonetheless, he could still barely transform one of his fingers into that of a dragon. When this giant dragon finger appeared on Lin Dong's palm, it seems fairly peculiar. However, that vibrations that seeped out caused Luo Tong's expression to turn solemn instantly. Swoosh! Once that dragon finger appeared, Lin Dong did not hesitate anymore. As he suddenly stretched out his arm, wherever the green dragon finger flashed by, the surrounding air was completely scattered. Following which, the green glow tore through the air and stabbed at Luo Tong as quick as lightning. Kai? Kai? Everywhere the dragon finger flashed by, it caused a piercing sound wave. As he stared at that dragon finger, that was growing rapidly in his pupils, vigorous yuan power gushed out manically from within Luo Tong's body. Finally, his hand seals changed as he furiously shouted, "Sword shield finger!" Sharp yuan power manically gathered in front of Luo Tong. In mere moments, they transformed into a large shield-like yuan power sword. An exceedingly solid sensation emerged from within, and it seemed like an extremely powerful shield. Clang! Once that sword shield materialized, an exceedingly sharp green glow violently approached. Following which, under countless stares from the crowd, it solidly slammed against that sword shield. Instantly, a piercing metallic sound violently resounded across the night sky. Boom! A terrifyingly force erupted the instant finger and shield collided. Due to that force, Luo Tong's body was actually forcefully pushed back by hundreds of meters. Burst chi! There was sparks crackling on that sword shield. Lin Dong's body continued to rush forth, while Luo Tong's body was directly pushed back by that force. Anyone could tell that Lin Dong had actually taken the upper hand in this direct fight. Luo Tong's expression was solemn. He could similarly sense just how powerful Lin Dong's attack was. He had never expected that even after he poured all his strength in his shield, he was still forced into such a sorry state. However, he believed that Lin Dong would not be able to sustain this kind of attack for long. As long as he is able to endure his vicious counterattack, he would have the chance to turn the tables. When he thought of this point, a cold glint flashed across Luo Tong's razor-sharp eyes. At this moment, he suddenly saw a derisive smile slowly appeared on Lin Dong's face. Promptly, his heart trembled. Break! While that derisive smile appeared on his lips, Lin Dong strangely pulled back his arm. Following which he was only a short distance away, his green dragon finger began to vibrate at a terrifying rate. Meanwhile, a piercing sound wave began to spread out while his dragon finger shook. When he saw this sight, Luo Tong's pupils violently shrunk. To use high-speed vibrations in order to increase his destructive power. That fellow's physical body is actually this powerful. Green dragon finger, destroy. A rapidly shaking green dragon finger carved out several blurry shadows, as it flew out as quick as lightning. Finally, it viciously slammed against that solid sword shield. Kai? Kai? A piercing sound wave manically sounded out from the sword shield. Finally, Luo Tong's shrunken eyes shriveled until it was the size of a pin. That was because he saw that there were actually small cracks appeared on the sword shield that he had used all of his yuan power to create. Break! Lin Dong's eyes were icy cold as he viciously shouted. Following which, his fingers began to vibrate even more vigorously. Crack! More and more cracks began to appear. Moments later, under Luo Tong's astonished stare, the shield that covered his body began to explode with a loud bang. Boom! Shrapnels filled the horizons. However, Lin Dong's expression remained calm. As he jerked his arm, that green glow directly tore through the shrapnels before it lightning-quick stabbed on Luo Tong's chest. Ding! That dragon finger landed on Luo Tong's chest, but it did not pierce the latter's body. Instead, a clear and crisp sound echoed out. As the residue force emerged, Luo Tong's shirt ripped apart before revealing a black vest that he was wearing underneath. On that black vest, there was a peculiar glow shimmering. Evidently, it was a fairly powerful soul treasure. However, right now, the glow on the soul treasure had dimmed. Evidently, it had suffered a big blow after taking Lin Dong's finger attack. Buzz. She. Even though he had the soul treasure to protect him, which allowed him to avoid a fatal attack, the residue force still wounded Luo Tong until he was forced to spit out a mouthful of blood. Meanwhile, his body hideously flew out. Following which, his figure flashed before he actually used the momentum to make an escape. Lin Dong, you will regret this. As Luo Tong's fled, and deep and enraged roar resounded across the night sky. During the night, the entire city seemed to have turned silent stealthily. Several pairs of hidden eyes were filled with shock. That first-ranked Earth category member who had already advanced into 4 Yuan Nirvana stage was actually wounded and forced back by Lin Dong. That fellow is simply too vicious. Several pairs of eyes involuntarily turned to look at that man hovering in the night sky. It was simply too much for them to believe that Luo Tong would actually be defeated by him. Furthermore, that guy was simply too gutsy. Injuring Luo Tong was akin to a declaration of war against the Wind Cloud Empire. The two heads of the Wind Cloud Empire will not let this matter rest. Some individuals muttered to themselves. They could only imagine just how enraged the Wind Cloud Empire will be when they hear about Lin Dong's provocations. The night sky gradually turned darker. However, that wild and violent energy ripple continued to remain in the night sky, causing many gazes present to be quietly tremble in fear. A couple of figures stood facing the wind on a tall tower at the north of the city. Their eyes were locked onto the direction where the big battle had erupted earlier. There was an unknown expression in their eyes. What an interesting fellow. However, his strength is indeed quite strong. There was a moon-white-clothed handsome man standing right at the front. He gradually withdrew his gaze from the distant, while an interested smile surfaced on his face. Although I do not have a deep relationship with Lin Dong, I am aware that someone like him will not live under anyone. The Wind Cloud Empire will definitely end up being rejected if it wished to recruit them. Another white-cloaked figure stood behind the white-clothed man. This was Mu Hanyu, whom Lin Dong had met during the day. At this moment, she had also withdrew her gaze from the night sky. There was still some remnant shock within her pretty eyes. Clearly, that big battle earlier had greatly exceeded her expectations. Not easy to recruit her? I can tell that Lin Dong's group is not a simple one. If we can recruit them, they will definitely be of great help. The handsome man said. Difficult. Mu Hanyu shook her head slightly. She looked towards the direction that Luo Tong had fled towards and softly said, Luo Tong is a good example. The reason why Lin Dong fought is to send us a message. He does not intend on joining any empires. Or rather, he thinks that there is not a single empire who has the qualification to recruit them, even including us, the super empires. Ha ha, what an arrogant fellow. The man laughed. It might be impossible to recruit such a person as a subordinate, but it is still possible to have a good relation with him through other means. Currently, they have offended the Wind Cloud Empire. This is quite good from the perspective of our Lone Moon Empire. Mu Hanyu said. The man nodded as he voiced his thoughts. The focus of the Wind Cloud Empire will definitely be placed on the auction held the day after tomorrow. They intend to obtain that heavenly soul treasure at any cost. If they were to obtain it, it is likely that no one will be able to stop them in the Wanxiang city. Other than our Lone Moon Empire, there are 2 other super empires who are also eyeing that heavenly soul treasure. They will not allow the Wind Cloud Empire to obtain it so easily, Mu Hanyu spoke faintly. there is still going to be a fight over this matter. Whoever obtains this heavenly soul treasure would likely gain quite a great advantage in the subsequent 100 Empire War. No one will give up so easily. Two figures were seated on a tall platform at the southern part of the city. A chessboard was placed in front of them and it looked like they were challenging each other. Swoosh! A rushing wind sound was emitted from a distance. Following which, a figure filled with a bloody stench hideously descended on a platform, before he stood in front of two seated individuals. His face was bitter and it was indeed Luo Tong, who was defeated in Lin Dong's hands earlier. Lin Dong, it is rumored that he has obtained one of the four great mysterious sects' inheritance. It is unexpected that someone who had come from a low-ranked empire is actually able to climb to such a stage in the ancient battlefield. It is really not easy. A seated figure raised his eyes, glanced at Luo Tong and laughed faintly. That fellow is indeed quite strong. Moreover, the martial arts that he had displayed is also extremely strange. Luo Tong could not resist but say after recalling the mysterious martial arts displayed by Lin Dong that had transformed his finger into a dragon finger. It should be a martial arts from the Green Dragon Hall, one of the four great mysterious sects. Another seated man raised his head. His facial expression was of a sickly pale color. That paleness appeared as though there was no blood flowing in him. That fellow refuses to hand over Su Ru. What should we do? Luo Tong softly asked. We must definitely obtain that girl. If we are able to obtain that kind of strength, we will definitely be able to stand out in the 100 Empire War. In fact, we will have no need to fear even when facing those powerful existences. The pale-faced man pressed his finger gently on the chessboard and smiled faintly. If he doesn't appreciate kindness, all we will need to do is to finish him off when the time comes. The smile on the corner of the man's mouth clearly had a ferocious feeling to it when he spoke. Luo Tong quietly nodded. His eyes similarly possessed a cold glint surging within it. Of course, we must first obtain that heavenly soul treasure from the auction. Once we obtain that thing, we will no longer need to be afraid of the remaining 3 super empires in the Wanxiang city. A little stray like Lin Dong shall amount to nothing. The figure opposite the pale-faced man finally spoke hoarsely. He raised his head and a ferocious scar could be seen on his face. The scar appeared to wiggle like a centipede, emitting an evil aura as it did so. Luo Tong, you should go and recuperate from your injuries first. Leave them alone for 2 days. We will settle all the grudges when the time comes. The chess piece on the scarred man's hand suddenly landed onto the chessboard. An incomparable wild and violent energy seeped out. All the chess pieces on the chessboard were shattered into powder. I understand. Luo Tong nodded. After which, he turned around and left without saying anything else. How troublesome. If it is not because I do not wish for more trouble at this point in time, I really wish to take action and finish off that brat. The scarred man lifted his head and muttered. He was staring into the distance in a dense wild beast-like manner. Relax, none of them will be able to escape once we obtain the heavenly soul treasure. Compared to this, I really feel a heartache for the price that we will need to pay in order to buy the heavenly soul treasure. If we are not in the Wanxiang city, I really wish to snatch it directly. The pale-faced man laughed faintly. Regardless of what price we pay, we can get them all back when the time comes. The scarred man parted his mouth and smiled. A chillness spread from his dense white teeth. Cuckoo, that's right. The pale-looking man raised his head. The savage feeling from the corner of his mouth became increasingly dense as he muttered, none of you will be able to escape. Such a conversation was currently appearing from quite a number of places within the Wanxiang city. The fight tonight had greatly exceeded the expectations of most people. Originally, they thought that Lin Dong would be suppressed in the face of the powerful for Yuan Nirvana stage strength of Luo Tong. However, the final result was Luo Tong fleeing after being injured. Lin Dong had displayed a shocking strength. However, many people understood that though he might appear impressive, he had also completely infuriated the Wind Cloud Empire. After all, the 2 leaders from the Wind Cloud Empire that had yet to reveal themselves were the truly frightening existences. Lin Dong's expression was calm as he stared at the direction in which Luo Tong had fled from the night sky. After which, he slowly landed into the courtyard. Sukue looked at Lin Dong, who had returned to the courtyard. He quietly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The latter's strength had clearly shocked him once again. He had discovered that after being acquainted with Lin Dong, he was continuously being shocked by the strength and trump cards displayed by the latter. It seems that we have truly formed a deep grudge with that Wind Cloud Empire this time around, little Martin casually laughed. Lin Dong nodded slightly. His gaze was immediately turned toward Sukue as he asked, "The Wind Cloud Empire has two leaders." "Yep, these two fellows are extremely powerful. They are different from Luo Tong, who has only just advanced to the full Yuan Nirvana stage. They have long since stepped into this stage. Moreover, they are also people who are in the heavenly category of the Nirvana tablet." Sukue's expression became solemn upon mentioning this. He clearly understood that the matter tonight had completely offended the Wind Cloud Empire and they would likely attack them soon. At that time, it would really be a soul-stirring time. Moreover, the techniques of those two fellows are also extremely vicious. Back then, they destroyed nearly 5 high-ranked empires overnight when they had just arrived at the Wanxiang city. They even exchanged blows with a super empire like the Lone Moon Empire. Finally, they directly forced the members from the reigning super sect to intervene, before the conflict was finally resolved. Destroying 5 high-ranked empires, Lin Dong sungulated his eyes. This method of establishing their dominance was indeed vicious. The Wind Cloud Empire is the strongest amongst the 4 super empires in the Wanxiang city. Adding the current Luo Tong, they possess 3 experts who had stepped into the full Yuan Nirvana stage. On the other hand, the remaining 3 super empires only have 1 person who had advanced to this level. Lin Dong nodded as he let out a sigh in his heart. From the looks of it, these super empires can also be divided into the strong and the weak ones. At the very least, this Wind Cloud Empire was much stronger on the surface when compared with the other 3 super empires. No wonder they were able to act in such a domineering manner in this city. The so-called 100 Empire War is ultimately a place for the super empires to fight. Other than some of those who had truly gained great luck and ability from the other empires, most of those who remained until the end are those who from the super empires. It is really too difficult for an ordinary person to even gain a spot, much less stand out in that kind of place. Lin Dong also deeply agreed with this. Those people from the super empires already belonged to the peak level ever since they had entered this space. Even if they did not spend any effort to search for treasures or inheritances, they will still form over 90% of the competitors. It was easier said than done for an ordinary person to compete with these people from a completely different starting point. However, there was no absolute fairness in this word. Constantly dwelling over it will only make an ordinary individual even more ordinary and they would only feel some additional useless resentment for no reason. The 4 super empires in Wanxiang City do not possess a congenial relationship. The auction this time around might worsen that grudge. I have heard that the 4 super empires are all targeting that heavenly soul treasure. No matter who the item ends up with, this Wanxiang City will definitely not be calm. Those grudges will also erupt at that time. Lin Dong nodded slowly. He lifted his head and looked into the distant night sky. He vaguely felt that this city seemed to possess the feeling of an approaching storm. After the auction was over the day after, it was likely that this city would also end up turning into a chaotic one. At that time, the Wind Cloud Empire would also likely attack them. This video will end here.